Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Rabbi Adam Kligfeld's weekly Rashi study class.
Hello to anyone who might be listening to this later on the Temple Beth Am podcast series. Wednesday morning, we're almost certainly going to finish the fifth Aliyah Parshat Bo today, and we're going to move from the long, at least for us long, because we go very slowly, the long set of instructions that were given first from God to Moses and Aaron, then from Moses and Aaron to the people about Exodus night. And at some point, pretty soon, we're going to go to Exodus night. We're going to go back to in real time narrative as opposed to the explanation of it in advance. And of course, the explanation has been referring to not just that night, but how Pesach was going to be observed for generations. I have us having read verse 26, plus we looked at one non-Rashi commentary on the verse because Rashi was quiet on 26, which means we're at verse 27 of chapter 12. If no one disagrees with that, Larry Herman, you want to read verse 27?
Sure. V'amartem zevach pesachu l'Adonai asher.
Good morning.
Okay, you hear me?
Yeah, just Norm was saying good morning, and we're going to say good morning right back to him. Keep going.
Asher pasach al b'tei b'nei Yisrael b'Mitzrayim v'nagpo et Mitzrayim ve'et batenu atzil v'yikod ha'am v'yishtachavu.
Good. Let me be a little bit grammatically nerdy before you translate, or I'm actually more linguistically nerdy. The first word is pronounced v'amartem. The stress is on the tem, and you know that because that's where the trup is. Just like it's kakatu v'achalta, v'savata, uverachta. So they're different, depending on where the trup is, that impacts the pronunciation. And the word after b'mitzrayim, unless you're looking at a chumash that writes the kamatz katan differently, you can only know this if you know the nitty gritty. It's benogpo, not benagpo. And just to go into the grammatical hole a little bit, the reason why it's po and not fo is because pe is a beged kefet letter, and if it has a dagesh, it means it's beginning a syllable. If it's beginning a syllable and it's after a shva, it has to be after a shva nach, a resting shva. And if it's a shva nach, then the previous vowel must be a short vowel. And so even though it looks like a kamatz, a standard kamatz is a long vowel, so it must be a kamatz katan benogpo. That's how you kind of build it backwards if you don't have it written that way. But since we're being very precise, and I know you're a precise person, I think I would have guessed you'd want to know. Okay, translate.
I wanted to know.
I know.
All right, and I'll just mention also. Not only is the trope over the tem, but it's a pazer, so it's really it's an exciting word. And you all shall say, and I want to put that in the second person plural, right?
Right. What's the context that you all should say? Remind everyone what's the previous verse?
What you should tell your children.
Correct. When your children ask, what is this thing? And remember, in context of chapter 12, this is not a snarly question by a Russia, but a wonderful question by your children of saying, Ima, Abba, Tata, why are we doing this? This should be your answer.
Okay, and you all should say to them, the Passover sacrifice this is to God, or this is the Passover sacrifice to God, which or who, I guess God, passed over the houses of Bnei Yisrael in Egypt. And so Nagfu, I guess
Nogpo.
Nogpo, sorry.
It doesn't sound Hebrew, but it is.
No, Nogpo. I looked it up, and I know that it means in smiting in smiting Mitzrayim.
Correct.
Not the Mitzrayim, but Egypt.
Right. So if we break apart that word, right? So the b is a preposition, but it doesn't really mean in. It means by means of here. The root is negef. Nun gimel pei means to smite or to afflict, and this is the gerund of it. It's probably normally you would say that nogev is a pa'al verb lingof, but then the gerund would be nigifa. So this is a gerund that was built from a different way. It's almost like the noun would be nogef. Who's nogef? God's nogef. So it's a him, nogpo, bit nogpo, in his smiting of. Yep,
okay.
Keep going.
In his smiting of Mitzrayim. And our houses were saved. He saved.
Hitzil is perfect third person singular verb. Lehatzil means to save. In modern Hebrew, a matzil at a pool is a
matzil
at a pool.
Lifeguard.
Yeah,
matzil, right. And we've discussed, and we're going to get to this later today, depending on how far we get. There are many types of vavs in the Torah. There's a vav which switches what a verb looks like from past to future and past. The most common vav is vav hachibur, a vav which we would translate as and. There's also a vav hanigud that pushes against. Which one is this one?
I guess it would be nigud. It would be but.
But good. You can't translate this as and, right? Hey, boys and girls, this is the Zevach Pesach to God. Which God? The God who pasach the houses of the Israelites in God's smiting the Egyptians. But on that night, he, God, because it's masculine, spared or saved your houses. Go ahead.
And then we have a semicolon, and the end of the verse is, and the people bow down, the yishtachavu, and they bow down. This
is from the Department of Redundancy Department, and Rashi's going to play with that. And it's not just redundant in that there are two synonyms. Can you raise anything else about how those three words are constructed that's interesting?
Well,
in addition to the fact that it's two different verbs?
Well, yikod looks to be in the singular, and yishtachavu is plural.
Correct. So it's not just that the Torah uses two words to describe whatever kind of bowing down they did, but the Vayikod takes the grammatically singular noun ha'am, and makes it a singular verb. And then by the time we get to Vayishtachavu, it's plural, as if to suggest all the people who are amongst the am, right? Because even though the word am is singular in grammar, it denotes a large group of people.
So if I were reading it with meaning and feeling, I would say, and the people bowed down, and each of them bowed.
Something like that. Yeah. Good. I already see some hands up, so we'll go to Barry and then Ilan, and then anyone else, questions or comments on the verse before we look at Rashi. Barry.
Well, this sort of presages the questions in the four-son story. The previous verse was the children are asking, "What's this service, lachem, your service?" And the answer is batenu, save our homes. So right from the very beginning, you answer the children to say you are included in this story. It's not my story; it's your story too.
Because it's our as opposed to as opposed to what?
Well, the question was lochem, and the answer is batenu.
But what else could it be?
My home.
I see. I mean, the whole thing is written in the plural because it could be that God is, or Moshe saying, like, all of you should say this, and since I'm addressing all of you, their response is going to be in the plural first person, we. But it could be that the answer was, and God's and God spared my house. Although, of course, this is imagining future generations. Yes, including the children in the story.
the question seems to allude to what is this thing that you're doing? I'm not included. What are you doing? And the
Yeah.
answer is you are included in this.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Elon.
Yeah, I'm sure no one's going to be surprised about this, but I would have been much more comfortable had the verse ended after Hitziel, and it's to me unnecessary to say that people prostrated themselves and bowed to me, and maybe it's a sign of, forgive the political commentary, but it's kind of God is Donald Trump, meaning that you must come with some telling God how great God is in order to get God to do something, to do the right thing. It's just, I would have felt better if he said it, and he saved our households. Period. End of story. It's just, I get it, but
When do you think the three words "Vayikod ha'am vayishtachavu" that the people bowed and prayed, Simon and Garfunkel, to the neon god they made? When do you think that's happening in the story? Do you think that is referring to on that night when God was smiting them, the people bowed and prayed, or in this moment where Moshe is telling them what's going to happen in the future, they bowed? How are you reading it?
that God did what God did, and that people bowed and prayed as a sign of gratitude.
I see. Midrash makes any read possible. I think Pshat is that remember how Larry said there was a semicolon after Hitziel? I think it's a semicolon at the end of a double a double quotation marks, right? So we're within a speech that Moshe is giving, and Moshe is imagining your children asking this question, and Moshe says, "This is what you should respond." Double, the internal quotation marks, and the last word that I, Moshe, think you should say when your children ask this question is Hitziel, end single quotation mark, and double quotation mark. Moshe speaking is over. Now we're in the scene where the Israelites are getting this information, and their response to this whole thing is, in that moment, they bowed. They expressed their acquiescence to the request by bowing. I don't think it's saying that they bowed the night of the smiting, because the night of the smiting hasn't happened yet, right? We're reading in advance. Could one read it differently? Yes, but I think simple pshat is that those three words, "Vayikoda am v'yishtachvu," was their response to Moshe laying it out. Because if you just cheat for a second and look at the next verse, the last verse of this chapter, "Vayilchu vayisu b'nei Israel," and then they went and did this. They started doing the very instructions that they were told to do. Just a possibility. Does that change your discomfort with it if it's describing how they acting to Moshe laying out these instructions?
So what is it does a little bit. So in that interpretation, what is the reason for the bowing?
So in that regard, you and Rashi are going to be similarly troubled by that, in the sense that it didn't need to be there. There's got to be a reason, and we'll see Rashi's reason. Rashi also wonders, what are they bowing for? And so we're going to find out. And we're going to find out how Rashi reads it, not the only way of reading it. Good. Rick, and then Tova.
Hi, good morning.
Boker Tov.
So going back just a little bit, he's talking to the elders of Israel in verse 21, right? So it's the elders who, the way I'm looking at it, it's the elders who bowed as a group, and then individually the Vayishtachavu is reflexive. It's each individual person is doing it. So you can drash on that if you want. And then the next verse, they went out, Vayelchu, those elders, and then the children of Israel did what the elders were going to tell them to do. So that's the way I'm reading it. But I raised my hand to go into Unclus. There we have Uchra. I recognize Korea, Umishtachava, is I think that's in the Aleinu. I'm not sure. And then Usgiru, Sagir. I don't recognize that verb. But does that
The
help?
Gidu, it's a Dalid. I believe
Oh,
that's a
that's a
Dalid.
Dalit. Oh, Usgidu. Okay, it still doesn't help me. But Sigid, is that
Yeah,
related to Tishtachaveh?
it's not. It's just a synonym. I'll show up. I'll pull up the Jastrow entrance to that root, but it's not a
Yeah.
root that you're going to see a lot. Um, Hold
The
on,
more
keep going.
unusual, the better.
Yeah,
And then I just like I always tell the kids, you can tell Aramaic because it has an aleph on the end. So Amma is the Aramaic, Ha'am is the Hebrew. I just like the simplicity of the difference there. That's
yeah.
all.
Thank you. If you look at the um, screen, this is not a common Hebrew verb in modern speech. I'm sure that doesn't mean it's never, but I don't remember coming across this just in modern Hebrew. It's not even that common an Aramaic word in Talmudic text, but it exists, right? So the root is sagad. Apparently, we can look at BDB that is also that BH means biblical Hebrew. There's also a Hebrew version of that root to bend, to bow, to worship. It's one of the many words, right? Eskimos have many words for snow, right? Jews had many words for bowing down. Nachnu korim, ishtachli, modim. The Elena could have been written Nachnu sogdim, right? But it just wasn't written that way. Let's see. Let's just look at the online BDB. Oops, and see if there are any interesting references with the Hebrew root. Okay. Yeah, to prostrate oneself in worship only. Perhaps an Aramaic loanword in Hebrew. Ethiopic sagada. I wonder if that's related to sigd. I don't know what the etymology is of the Jewish Ethiopian ritual sigd, S-I-G-D, but if this is related to Ethiopian, it's possible. And I'm trying to think if there's any yeah, it looks like there are not many places in Tanakh where it's even used. Apparently, there's a verse in Isaiah, Yivgod lo, but not a lot of them. So it's a very, very rare root in Hebrew. Yeah, only Isaiah chapter 4 and 46 is the only place where it exists. So it's not quite a hapax legomenon. It appears in 2 chapters, but it's very, very infrequent in Hebrew. And then I think it became a more common Aramaic verb. Thanks, Rick. Tova.
Yeah, I wanted to make a broader comment. I was actually thinking of this last week, and it ties in with also the Vayikot Ha'am Vayishtachavu at how far we've come. Because when we started this journey, we had Jews in Egypt who had almost lost the memory, or seemed to have almost lost the memory of their connection to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to being reminded of that, a people who were at odds with one another, a people who were at odds with Moses and criticizing him, and very much not a people. And part of what we're seeing over this, the whole course of this, is them being molded into a people and into a relationship with God. And it struck me in these last sections that we've been reading, the emphasis on your children and the generations to come is really emphasizing that notion of you are not these individual slaves who've been divided by your labors and your oppression in this land. You are a people with a future and with generations that are going to be coming. And that, again, that theme is here again. You're responding to the children that you're going to have. And in that context, I actually find the Vayikot Ha'am Vayishtachavu very powerful, because it's like the ultimate avodah that Moses kept telling Pharaoh, we should have to go into the wilderness to worship God, to perform the service. It's a spontaneous act of awe in the face of these extraordinary happenings. So I don't see it as the kind of cloying act that Elon was maybe, but rather a genuine reaction to a profound experience.
Well, lovely comment, Tova. That's like that comment's an article right there. Seriously, a wonderful way of highlighting how Am here is operating in the grander narrative of this people on the precipice, we hope, of going from a group of slaves to an Am. Lovely. I would never have picked up on that. And it's also a kind of a half answer to why it's significant that it's both singular and plural, right? Like, yes, of course, each of them did it, but they did it as an Am.
Yeah.
And that also presages a bit of some of the Midrashim on Har Sinai in the reverse, that God spoke to all of them simultaneously, but each of them heard it individually. This is like almost a reverse of that yes, each of them did it, but it was they're nationizing in real time in front of our eyes. Lovely. Thank you for that. Renee.
Everett Fox makes the whole sentence plural. He says the people did homage, and bowed low.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because in English that works because the English word "the people" take people. Well, is the people in past tense? Well, the people is it's a singular noun, but it denotes a plurality. And you're right, he doesn't change the subject. He assumes that the word Am is the subject both of Vayikod and Vayishtachavu, which it sort of can be. Yeah. Okay, anything else on the verse itself? Any other questions or alternate translations before we have Larry read the Rashi? Okay, Larry, unmute, because you muted. And Vayikod, and as Larry's reading this, just remember the last thing that Tova said about what's being foretold or hoped for in this scene.
Right, it's almost like we've discussed this so much. It's an afterthought now. Okay, so Vayikod Ha'am. So the people bowed, or the Kahal bowed. Al bisorat hagula, uviat haaretz, uvisorat habanim shiyu lahem. So I guess bisorat is like the news or the tidings.
Correct.
So
Vayvaser lanu bisorot tovot Yeshuot v'nechamot. Right.
Is that the source of the Christians, the good news? Anyways, doesn't matter.
Glad tidings. I don't know. I think it's a translation of bisorot to it. Could be.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to go there. So why did they bow? So Rashi's asking. So why did they bow down? Which is what we were asking before. And he says three things: because of the news of the redemption, they're going to be saved. That's the Hatzil part. The at haaretz, and that they're on the arrival to the land.
Which was discussed 2 verses ago in verse 25, right? So, because going back to the thing I said back to Ilan, the way Rashi reads this is that the prostrating of themselves was in response to this whole delivery by Moses. And in this whole delivery, they got a lot of good news. They got the fact that they're leaving Egypt. They were told about when you go into the land, which means, we're going to get to the land eventually. Not them themselves, but they don't know that yet. And
on the news that of the children that they will have for themselves. So it's like, really? Our children are going to ask something? We're going to have children.
Right.
How wonderful.
Right. I'm going to blow this joke, but David Wolpe has made this reference a few times. It's not even a joke. It's like a witticism that how to remain optimistic in this era when, like, imagining you were geschrying to your ancestors from 100 years ago that were living in an era where I'm going to kill it. Like, all the UN does is put out statements against the state of Israel, and we were geschrying, and our ancestors would have said, "Wait, there's a state of Israel?" Right? like, wait, what? What? Like, start from the things that you could not have believed might have materialized, and rather than focus on the aspects of that are challenging. Wait, the Israeli army is being called for war crimes. Wait, there's a Jewish army? right? So Rashi is reading in a wonderful generational sweep here, similar to what to how Tova was saying it, that this prostate, can't say it, this bowing down is in response to three prophecies or three instructions that are incredible compared to the experience that they've been having in Egypt. They're going to be out of slavery. They're going to get to the land, and there's going to be future. There's going to be future people, right? We've said this many times in our Jewish lives, right? There's a modern country of Egypt, but there's no relation to Pharaoh, right? That Pharaoh's people are gone, and the Hittites are gone, and the Hivites are gone, and the Girgasites are gone. We're going to have a future. So that's how Rashi reads it. I want to share with you a super commentary on Rashi, because he's doing to Rashi what Rashi does to the verse as to why Rashi particularly talks about a trio of things. Anyone, before we get there, anyone else on the Rashi itself?
Can I just say one or ask one thing?
Yeah.
So this business about, or the question to who's bowing and to whom was Moses speaking? And it seems to me that an argument can be made that the yishtachavu, meaning all of them, can maybe be interpreted as, and all the people, not just the elders, because the elders are going to tell the people, or however it's going to happen, and they have the reaction that you just described, which I really like, the whoopee joke. And the last thing I'll say is it possible that they reacted to that with the news that they're going to have children because was Pharaoh's order that you drown the male still in place, and so they're saying, "Wow, we're going to have sons, not sons." So interpret that not simply as children, but as sons, because up till then, all the sons maybe are drowned.
Very nice. And even if we don't have to read it as precisely as Pharaoh's decree was still in place, the stress, the trauma of this generation is infanticide, and part of the blessing is the production of new generation of children who are going to ask you questions about what happened. Okay. Good. Okay. Let me pull up the super commentary of the Siftei Chachamim, one of several super commentaries on Rashi. Sometimes this is printed in some Chumashim, some version of the Mikro Kilot, but Sefaria has it all. So if you're ever exploring on Sefaria, if you can click on a verse and it shows you the Rashi, then you have to click on the Rashi, so its own column here. And then if you click on that, you can open up commentaries on the Rashi. Okay, this is what the Siftei Chachamim says, or if you're firmer, the Siftei Chachamim. Okay, like the difference between where we were in Bratislava, the Chatam Sofer or the Chasam Sofer. Okay, Al Besorot Hagula, etc. So he's commenting on Rashi's phrase that this bowing down has to do in response to these prophecies of good news. Diek kol elu, Rashi read particularly, specifically, all of these things, Hagimel. The reason why Rashi turned it into a trio of things, midichtiv, because this phrase was written strangely. We've discussed how strange it is that you have two verbs in different numbers, vayikod, ha'am, vayishtachavu, that the people, singular, bowed, and then they all bowed. Dahava leila meimar, vayiktu. It could have just been vayiktu, they bowed. One verb, plural, all of them bowed. Kemoshin amar, vayishtachavu, as it had said, vayishtachavu. Ella lahorot, rather to teach, shechad kida haya, there was one moment of kida, because it's a singular verb, ushnei hishtachavaot, and two moments of prostrating. And this is attributed to the Maharshal, Rabbi Shlomo Luria, who is a Polish commentator, not to be confused with Rabbi Isaac Luria, who is the spot-based mystic. So the idea is that the reason why these three words are written that way, vayikod, ha'am, vayishtachavu, vayikod is a singular, that's one act. Hishtachavu is a double, or is denoting a double, so it's two acts. So it was one plus 2 equals 3 must be 3 things they were responding to. What are the 3 pieces of news in the previous verses? You're going to be free, you're going to get to the land of Israel, and you're going to have children. Right? One possible resolution of the odd construct of Vayikoda Am Vayishtachavu. Okay. It's pause for any comments or questions on that. This is the only thing that Rashi says on this verse. Okay, let's go to verse 28. Rebecca, you want to read verse 28? Haven't heard from you yet today.
Okay. Vayelchu vaya'asu b'nei Yisrael ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe v'Aharon kain asu. And the children of Israel went and did as God had commanded to Moshe and Aaron, so they did.
Good. Also from the Department of Redundancy Department. So perfect translation, right? These are words that are relatively easy to make sense of and put into English. Anybody want to comment on the verse itself before we look at Rashi? Okay, so the simple meaning seems to be that the long speech, which has taken up a lot of chapter 12, is over. Right? There were 2 speeches in chapter 12. God speaking to Moses, and then Moses transferring that over to the Israelites, the elders. And then it seems like they went and did it, just as God had instructed Moses and Aaron. It's a little bit clunky, right? They did. It doesn't say they did that which God had instructed them. It doesn't say they did that which Moses and Aaron instructed them. They did that which God had instructed Moses and Aaron, which we understand why it, what makes sense, because it went from God to Moses, Aaron to them, but it's a little bit awkward. And then the seeming redundancy, Cain Avdu, that they did it thusly. Okay, Rick.
Just on the trope, it highlights that Tziva Adonai, that's the most fancy, it's the most important trope there, that all this comes from God. You could interpret that it's not coming from Moses and Aaron. They didn't get this idea to do all this, but it comes from God. So it's like a parallel to Pharaoh commanding things, whether it gets done or not, and God commands it. So the trope on the tziva, it really highlights God in this sentence. But
Great.
anyway,
Great.
yeah.
Larry, Diane?
Yeah, I just want to speak out for the Ziknei Yisrael, since I'm feeling myself a little zakan here, because they get omitted in this entire thing, and they were part of the transmission chain.
Yeah.
I suppose one could drash on that. I won't, but they're omitted completely here, and they're omitted in even Rashi's commentary.
Just that in the short synopsis, somehow that stage is just missing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems
Yeah.
to me that everybody has an important role in terms of what they're doing. God, of course, Moses and Aaron, and the two of them both separately and individually in different places, and then the people. But the fact that everything was delegated through Ziknei Yisrael, and delegation is such an important part of our society writ large, not just Jewish society, and the role of the role of the elders, because we venerate them in terms of not the elders here per se, but when we talk about our elders and the transmission from Sinai to Moses, et cetera, and that's just, I don't know if the term is actually Ziknei Yisrael, but it's about our elders, and the Chachamim are these elders, and that's really because what we practice today is a lot closer to what the elders decided we should do than to what God or Moses ever decided. Here they're omitted, and I won't say anything more, but it's striking to me.
They're omitted, and you could also come at it from a different angle. What also is omitted from this chapter is when the elders communicated this to the people. right? If you look back at verse 21, the beginning of the fifth Aliyah, that's when Moses calls the elders to give them the instructions of what's going to happen on Exodus night. And then you're in one several verse quotation mark, which ends with, and when that ends, it means that Moshe is done speaking. But we never see the scene when the elders take that to the Israelites. All we get to is that the Israelites learned it and they responded. So you could focus on the omission of the Israelites hearing it from the elders, or you could focus on the omission of the elders' role in the story being omitted from this verse. One way or the other, it's terse, right? We're not getting every detail, but it's an interesting omission. Rick again, then Barbara.
What? I just wanted to say again, you could read the Vayelchu, those were the elders going out, because when Moses and Aaron tell the people things, it's not to everybody. They didn't have microphones to reach thousands of people. You'd tell the elders, and then the elders would go to each of their different tribes. Yeah. So I think the elders are right there in the Vayelchu, and then the trope doesn't do it that way. It could have been separate. Vayelchu could have been all by itself, but it's the children of Israel who do the Vaya'asuing. So I think the elders did the going out to their individual tribes, and then they did it.
Nice.
Anyway,
right. Certainly possible. Rick, when you finish your comment, you say a comment and then you say anyway. To self-deprecatingly finish your comment with an exclamation point, with a sofa sefer.
Okay, it's fine. I'll do that. But it just
reminds
seems
me,
it's a simple thought, and I don't. It's
offer
not,
it.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Reminds me. Gary Goldman has a wonderful shtick about how no one ever said anything of substance, and then ended it with just saying. Right, he's making fun of the young people, just like the way they mess with language. Just saying, and then he imagines like great speeches in history. Imagine Patrick Henry saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." Just saying, as if like you want to pull back with it, like ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Just saying, say it with an exclamation point. Okay, Barbara. Nope. Where are you? Now we can't hear you or see you.
Oh, really?
You there? Okay, now we can hear you, and we know what you look like. Now we can see you.
I was pressing the wrong thing. This sentence, you call it clunky, and it is, I agree. But it would take 2 or 3 sentences to say this in proper Hebrew or English. And maybe all of a sudden, whoever wrote this, whether it's God or somebody else, didn't feel like talking for a long time, despite the many sentences in the Torah which go on ad infinitum. It just seems funny that this is that clunky when so much is often said with many more words.
Yeah. Sometimes the verses seem long, and sometimes the verses seem short. That is true. Barry, and then I see Rebecca's hand.
So what I see here, this last line, it's a narrative structure. It's a narrative thing. There's been all this, you should do, they should do, they did, blah, blah, blah. Immediately the next sentence, action happens. So this is the end of what's going to be, and it ends with the people did it.
Correct.
Immediately now we're going to go into action. It's a narrative statement.
Correct. Absolutely. We're moving from the instructions about it to it actually happening. That very nexus is what Rashi is going to go pick up on. Interestingly, on this pretty short verse with not any hard Hebrew, Rashi has no fewer than 3 comments on it. So he's activated by this verse, and we'll see what he's activated by in a minute. Rebecca?
So perhaps it's very terse about they did what the Lord commanded because they can't really do everything yet. They can do the sacrifice and the painting the doorposts, but they can't do these future things about when they come to the land and passing it on to their children. So only some of it can they do now. So they did what they could.
Right. So Rashi is going to make a very similar point, but even more pointed than that, because just to give it away a little bit, he's going to say that they couldn't even have done the sacrifice yet. Why not? They actually couldn't have done anything yet. Why not? Asking anyone. When is this scene taking place?
They're in Egypt,
Yes.
and they don't
What's
have
the
a
date?
place.
What's the date?
The
Tova?
13th?
Don't think so.
No,
According to Rashi, it's Rosh Chodesh.
Right. Right.
Ah.
So we can let's read Rashi and then we'll build Rashi's comment, right? And it's confusing for us because we've been in this scene, and the scene has talked about the starting to gather the animals 5 days beforehand, and it's talked about Exodus night, and it's talked about the future generations, but we have had nothing in the Torah that suggests that any time has passed from, look at chapter 12, verse 1, right? Vayomer Moshe el Aaron be'eretz Mitzrayim lemor hachodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim. That God had brought Moses and Aaron together, saying, "This new moon, first day of Nisan, as it were." And there's been no suggestion that forces us to imagine that any of this is taking place after that. Right? We've forgotten that because so much later material has been discussed, but it may be that no time had passed. So look at now with that in mind. Look at what Rashi says on Vayelchu vayasu b'nei Yisrael, Rebecca.
Vayelchu vayasu b'nei Yisrael, and children of Israel went and did. V'chi kvar asu.
Question mark. Put a question mark. Put a question mark after v'chi kvar su, like an incredulous question mark.
V'chi kvar asu.
Meaning?
V'halo mirosh chodesh ne'emar lahem.
Okay, so translate that. What does he mean by v'chi kvar asu?
And they already did so?
Say it with slightly different tone, or a slightly different.
And they already did so?
Are you telling me that they actually started doing it? He's not saying did they do it. He's saying then at that moment they already started doing the things they were told to be done. But behold, hello.
And was it not at the beginning of the month that they were told?
Rashi's saying it seems to me, it's not the only way of reading the chapter, that all of this is happening at the same time that the first verse of the chapter is happening, which is Rosh Chodesh, right? And so if this is all happening then, did they go and start doing this? Impossible. Rather.
Ella mikivan shekiblu alehem me'ele alehem ki'ilu asu.
Okay.
However, since they received it, accepted on themselves, I don't know, this accounts to their credit.
Right. So
it elevates them.
Elevates the matter as if they had done it. Ma'aleh alehem hakatuv. The subject is hakatuv. The katuv, the verse, ma'aleh alehem, it lifts it upon them as like a garland of honor. Ki'ilu asu. You can imagine this being the kernel of lots of interesting drashot, and you could also imagine the counter drashot to those drashot. Right? The drashot are, there's something about an internal conviction that you're going to do something that gets you significant part of the way to doing it, right? Because obviously, if you want to really be pigayun about it, you can't do something unless you've decided to do it, even if you weren't aware of the decision. But in the decision moment, that's when you're almost inevitably going to do it unless you change your mind, right? And there's something about that. Like, what does it mean to you can imagine the Yom Kippur drash of this, right? When you beat your chest and you make a conviction internal to yourself that you're going to change this behavior, you're a significant part of the way there, right? You can imagine the counter argument. It means nothing until you do it, right? Or until you don't do it, right? So you need the decision, you need the changing of the mind, the change of the heart to have the action. But there's also a very Jewish approach to saying that no matter what you have kavanah for, it's until you get, I'm making a decision that I'm going to go to minyan every day. Yeah, well, when you go to minyan every day, then that will count for something. Right? You can read it both ways. It's making me I don't know why this is the association I'm having. I've been doing some reading and podcasting recently on psychedelics as they entering into the mainstream more. I've never experienced it. I probably will go my entire life without it. But more and more people not anywhere near the fringe of society and the fringe of medicine are experiencing it and actually touting its possibilities for positive impact in the world. And in particular, I don't remember if this was a Sam Harris podcast or with Michael Pollan, the author of The Omnivore's Dilemma, or Malcolm Gladwell. I don't remember what it was, but they're finding out that the promises you make to yourself deep in a psychedelic journey have a certain amount of authority that remains when you emerge, and that this is proving itself to be incredibly helpful when it comes to addiction. People who struggle with addiction, it's a terrible scourge, and it's a combination of clearly of a biological, neurological, physiological matter and a psychological matter, right? And I'm sure most people who have struggled with addiction, who've tried to overcome it, have told themselves 1,000 times, "I'm not going to drink again," right? Or "I'm not going to use again." They've made the decision internally, but then they fall because it's hard to stop that. And apparently they're finding out that when people go into psychedelic, like managed psychedelic experiences with part of the intent to confront their own addictions, the decisions that they make in that journey have a lasting authority that seems to have a significant impact on their ability to hold by that when they emerge. Not perfect, but it seems to be more authoritative. So it's as if Rashi's saying the moment they decided to take it upon themselves to do it, there was no other reality other than that they were going to do it. So the verse says they did it. They haven't done it yet, but they're going to do it because they said they were going to do it. Right? Their word is gold. Okay. I saw Barry's hand up, but it's down again. Anything else? Anyone? You're good, Barry?
Just kind of redundant. I didn't want to spoil what you said. It was great just now. I'm just listening. Again, it's the end of the narrative. So everything that should have been done has been done. Table is clear now. Everything's done. Now we'll go forward. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so that's what he says on the Vayelchu Vayasu at Bnei Israel. So that's on the phrase. Sometimes Rashi does this in reverse order. He comments on the whole phrase, and then he goes back and he comments on individual words within the phrase. You could imagine a methodology that's reverse. Now he's going to talk about the more minor redundancy of just Vayelchu Vayasu, because it could have been Vayelchu and it could have been Vayasu. Why does it say Vayelchu Vayasu? They went and they did, right? Why both? Go ahead.
Vayelchu Vayasu, af hahalicha mana hakatuv, latain sachar lahalicha, v'sachar laasiya.
Okay.
So even the going, Scripture counts to grant a reward for going and a reward for doing.
Okay. Put that into more common phrases. What do you think Rashi's saying here, Rebecca?
Well, there's two actions. There's going and doing, and each one needs to get recognized and is rewarded.
Right. And what do you think is what's the sermon? What's the Dvar Torah? Open this up to anybody. What's Rashi's point? To understand that he's assigning some significance to each verb, but so what? Any thoughts, anyone? I see Larry's hand up. I don't know if you're responding to that or something else, but have at it.
Yeah, it's responding to the whole thing, which I think is pretty obvious. Not trivial, but obvious, which is, as was said before, previously, you get credit for making the decision.
You paused. Either you paused or I paused. Am I paused, everybody? No.
No, Larry, you're frozen.
Yeah, I can.
But,
Larry's frozen. I can.
all right, let's give him 10 more
you.
seconds. If he doesn't unfreeze, we'll come back to him.
Okay, that's us.
Say it again. Can you say it again?
Okay. Yeah, that was us. You get credit for making the determination to perform the mitzvah or whatever it's going to be. Once you've done that, now you get credit for actually performing the mitzvah. So you can get double credit. I suppose one can come up with a third thing as well. But
it's already a third thing, right? Because if you really want to connect the two Rashis together, you get credit for making the decision to do it. That's the first one. You're going to get credit when you're doing it. That's the third one. You're even getting credit for the walk along the way. It's like me, biking by you as you walk to Minyan in the morning, Larry, and giving you a yeshkayach just for walking to Minyan. You haven't said a single word. You haven't joined the Minyan, but you're walking there. It's Halakha. That is what a beautiful thing. You're walking to Minyan, right?
Well,
it's almost like that.
I was going to say maybe even a fourth thing. Maybe it's a variation of the third thing. You get credit after you've done it if, in fact, it's accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. So the building's there and you say, he built that because he did it. But if you say, I'm going to build it, you get credit. And then while you're building it, you get credit. And then when it's done, you get credit. And years after, when people look up to that and say, look what this person did, you get credit. There's almost like continuous credit for what you're doing. I was going to say one other thing, which is going back to the very beginning. Sometimes we cannot fulfill the things that we've committed to doing for reasons out of our control, not because we didn't want to do it, because the other things intervened. Don't worry. The first thing is you get credit for doing that. But say you didn't make the commitment, you just fell into a mitzvah. That's okay. You get credit for doing the mitzvah, even if you didn't have the intention of doing it at first. There's credit all over the place. God has given extra credit. He's an easy grader.
It's lovely in both directions. I really like that, Larry, that if you made a true commitment to do it, you get some divine credit, even if it was a situation of ason, even if it was impossible for you to actually fulfill it, right? And the reverse, even if you just happen upon a mitzvah and you don't get the first credit, you get the second credit. I'm going to share this with you, not to pat myself on the back at all, but just to show you how you can imagine to apply this religious ethos to all of our lives. I'm on the East Coast right now, and where I am, the closest daily minyan is 30 minutes away. So I've been driving to Longmeadow, Massachusetts there's a cute little Orthodox shul in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, has a morning minyan, evening minyan, right? I'm not driving 7 hours, but to get in the car and drive 30, 35 minutes each way, twice a day, it's a significant portion of my day. And I do it out of my commitment to tefillah. I do it out of commitment to say Kaddish for my father. And because I believe in minyan. Last night, I drove to Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and I was the 10th. Eventually, they got another one, but they weren't expecting me to come, right? I was the 10th. And I can imagine Rashi saying, all those 31 minutes in the car on the way to Longmeadow, Massachusetts, that was your halicha. Well, like beautifully done, Adam. Like well done, because it's not just that you made minyan, you schlepped to get to minyan, right? So it's actually a very generous way of understanding our relationship to mitzvot. Good. Rick.
Just saying, there's a footnote at the back of Silverman.
Nice.
Glad you appreciate that. So I'd just like to read it about the Kenasu. That the preceding words suggest that Moses and Aaron did not observe the command which they gave to the Israelites. I don't get that, but that's what Silverman says, or the editor, that Moses and Aaron didn't do it. So Scripture therefore adds the words kenasu. Thus did they
You're
also.
you're commenting on two Rashis from now. You're so way ahead,
No,
Rick. Yeah,
no. This is footnote 1 on this verse.
yeah, but
Sorry.
we haven't even read that Rashi yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there's a
You might as well
footnote.
be talking about the book of Leviticus. I mean, come on. Let's slow things down. Okay, let's get there, or we may or may not get there, but let's see. Rashi on the phrase Kasher Tziva Adonai et Moshe. Sorry, at Moshe v'Aaron, that God had commanded Moses and Aaron. Rebecca, you're still up.
Okay. Lahagid Shivchan Shel Yisrael Shelo Hipilu Davar Mikol Mitzvot Moshe v'Aharon.
Okay.
To tell, so what is it that the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron? To tell the praise of Israel, that they didn't omit anything.
Right. Lahapil is from the root nofel. The nun falls out in the hifil. Lahapil means to drop. He didn't omit or drop one thing.
Okay. From all the commandments of Moses and Aaron.
Okay. On this part of this Rashi, what's Rashi's question? He's giving us the answer. What's his question?
What did the Lord command to them?
I think the question is a little more pointed than that. He has a question on the verse about why the verse says something or says something in a certain way. I think his question is I can imagine Larry saying this, right? Obviously, they did everything that God commanded them to do. They weren't not going to do what God commanded Moses and Aaron, and they weren't going to do something that's different than what they commanded. So why does the Torah have to tell us that they got these instructions and then they did, and they didn't just do, they did kasher tziva Adonai. What else were they going to do something else? And Rashi's answer is, this is not to make clear that they did what obviously we thought they did, but is God's way of putting into God's very special book another way of fawning over God's beloved people. Like, look at this people, right? Yes, I know it's obvious that they did everything that God commanded to do, but I want to praise them. I want to put another beautiful picture of them doing mitzvahs in this book called the Torah, and I want it to be 100% clear that they were punctilious about fulfilling it exactly as I commanded. Of course they're going to do that. Yeah, but I want you to know it, right? It's almost like it's a gratuitous thing that God includes this gratuitously to make it clear how happy God was that the Israelites were doing the very thing you would expected them to do, which is to follow the commandments. Okay, maybe it's an interesting contrast to the many, many, many moments in the desert where the Israelites are not going to do that. In this moment, they did exactly what they're asked to do. I'm including it in the book. Okay. And then Rashi asks, Umahu, and this is what I think the part that you were reading, Rick, or you were referring to.
Umahu kain asu, af Moshe v'Aharon kain asu.
Okay, so once again, we have a double redundancy. We have a redundancy that we're told that they did exactly as God commanded Moses to Aaron, as if they would have done something else. And then even after that, you have another kenasu. And so Rashi's resolution to the second kenasu, where it's kasher tziva Adonai Moshe v'Aaron, and then kenasu. So how does Rashi read the last kenasu?
And what is, so they did, even or also Moshe and Aharon did so.
Right. The kenasu, according to the Rashi, is not just restating that the Israelites did it, and also Moses and Aaron did it. Also Moses and Aaron did what?
Fulfilled the commandment, the sacrifice and the painting the doorposts and what.
Right. And there are two ways of looking at this. One, it's saying that Moses and Aaron got their hands dirty in the work of Exodus night, and they did not just stand back and delegate. There's a super commentary on Rashi that also says that this is also reminding you that not only were Moses and Aaron part of the Goalim, the redeemers, God's partner, they were the Nigalim. They were redeemed too. They also broke free of their oppression and their suffering, right? Don't just think of them as on team Redeemer. They're also on team Redeemed, and this Kenasu reminds us of that. We're a few minutes over already, but Rachel, last comment.
Just that I'm touched or noticing the specific for Moses and Aaron, just what you were saying about they too were not exempt. After having passed on these message, they had to do the instructions themselves.
Yeah.
That's it.
And wonderful. It's a good way to end. Remember, next week also on Zoom, only Zoom, and then 2 weeks from today back in person. Bye, everybody.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.